Prologue. The palace burns. The wedding ring hit the floor before the screaming started. Gold spun against marble, catching torchlight in dizzy circles, and I did not stop to pick it up. My skirts tangled around my ankles as I ran. White silk, imported from the eastern provinces, embroidered with seed pearls that had taken 3 seamstresses 4 months to attach. The dress cost more than most families earned in a decade. I would have burned it if I had the time. Behind me, the king's chamber door shuddered against its hinges. Wood cracked. Something heavy hit the frame from the other side. Once, twice, and I heard his voice through the splintering panels. Not angry, calm, patient. The voice of a man who had done this before and knew how it would end. Tessa. He drew out each syllable, his tongue caressing my name like a man savoring fine wine. There's nowhere to run, my love. I did not answer. Could not answer. My throat had closed around a scream I refused to release. The door shuddered again. Through the gap between frame and wood, I caught a glimpse of his face. Handsome, composed, wearing the same patient smile he had worn during our wedding ceremony 3 hours ago. The smile of a man who enjoyed the chase. I can hear your heartbeat, you know, he continued, his voice dropping to something almost tender, the way one might speak to a frightened animal. It's racing, like a little rabbit caught in a snare. I do so love that sound. The window ledge bit into my palms as I climbed. 3 stories down, the courtyard gleamed wet with rain, black and slick, and waiting to break my bones. The last one tried the window too, the king mused, and I heard him settle against the door frame in no hurry at all. Lady Margaret, do you remember her? No, I suppose you wouldn't. She was before your time. Lovely girl. Excellent bloodlines. She made it all the way to the garden wall before my men caught her. I did not want to know what happened to Lady Margaret. I already knew. I had seen the jar, with her name on it, her heart floating in amber liquid like a preserved flower. The one before her tried the servants' passages, he continued conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather over breakfast. Lady Eleanor, she was clever, bribed one of the kitchen boys to show her the hidden routes, made it nearly to the city gates. He chuckled, a warm sound that made my skin crawl. I had the kitchen boy flayed, of course. Can't have the staffy developing loyalties to temporary residents. The door gave another shudder. The top hinge tore free from the frame with a shriek of metal. But you, my dear Tessa, he said, something shifting in his voice. Something hungry. You're different, aren't you? You found the room. You saw what I've been working toward, which means you understand exactly what's at stake. I understood. I understood that the man I had married was not seeking a wife, but a specimen. I understood that the 12 queens who had come before me had not died of illness or childbirth or broken hearts. They had been harvested piece by piece in his quest to steal the immortality his first wife had refused to share. I understood that if I did not jump, I would end up in a jar on his shelf. The door burst open. I jumped. Wind screamed past my ears. The world became a blur of darkness and falling, my stomach lurching upward as my body plummeted down. I had time for one thought. This is going to hurt. And then I hit the garden hedge with a sound like bones breaking. Branches snapped beneath my weight. Thorns tore through silk and skin alike, raking bloody lines across my arms, my face, my throat. I crashed through the rose bushes and slammed into the frozen ground, the impact driving every thought from my skull except one. Move. I moved. My legs did not want to cooperate. Something in my ankle had twisted wrong during the fall, sending bolts of pain up my calf with every step. I ignored it. Pain was a message from a body that wanted to survive. I could listen to pain later when I was somewhere the king could not reach. Behind me, I heard him at the window. "Impressive," he called down, his voice carrying clearly through the cold night air, genuine admiration threading through the words. Most of them hesitate, stand there, weighing their options until my guards arrive. But you just jumped. I knew there was something special about you, Tessa. I did not look back. The servants' gate hung crooked on its hinges at the far end of the garden, rusted from decades of disuse. If I could reach it before he summoned his men. "Run, little rabbit," the king said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Run as fast as you can. It only makes the chase more satisfying." The bells began to toll. Deep bronze voices announced that something had gone wrong, that the new queen had fled her marriage bed. Within minutes, every guard in the palace would be searching for me. Within hours, every soldier in the city would have my description. I squeezed through the servants' gate, metal scraping my already wounded arms, and ran into the darkness beyond. The road stretched before me, pale grey against the darker fields. The smart choice, the safe choice, would be to follow it to the nearest village, find a church, claim sanctuary. That was what the other wives had done. That was what anyone with sense would do. But I had seen the room. I had seen the jars labeled with the names of women who had sought sanctuary, who had hidden in churches and convents, and the homes of sympathetic nobles. The king's reach extended everywhere. His hunters found everyone except the things that lived in the forest. The widow's wood rose before me like a black wall, darker than the darkness around it, so thick with shadows that no moonlight penetrated its canopy. I could smell it from 50 feet away, pine and rot and something older, something that made every instinct I possessed scream, turn back. My nurse had told me stories about those woods, stories about travelers who wandered in and never wandered out, stories about sounds in the darkness, laughter, weeping, screaming that had no human source, stories about the things that drank blood and feared sunlight and had made their home in the deep places since before the kingdom existed. "Run to the village, child," my nurse had told me when I was small, her voice serious and her eyes shadowed with old fear. "Run to the church, run to your family, but never, ever run to the forest. The monsters there are not the kind that can be reasoned with or bribed or escaped." Behind me, torchlight bobbed and weaved across the fields. The guards were organizing their search, fanning out from the palace in a pattern designed to cover every road, every farm, every possible route of escape. I ran toward the trees. The moment I crossed the tree line, the world went silent. Not quiet, silent. The crunch of my footsteps on dead leaves simply stopped, as if someone had stuffed cotton in my ears. The shouts of the guards cut off mid-word. Even my own breathing seemed to disappear, swallowed by a darkness so complete I could not see my hand before my face. I stumbled forward anyway, arms outstretched, and the forest let me pass. Branches did not catch my hair. Roots did not snare my feet. Something was clearing a path, guiding me deeper into the darkness with an intelligence that should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but I kept walking, because the alternative was worse. Time lost meaning in that darkness. Minutes stretched into hours, or perhaps hours compressed into minutes. I could not tell. My legs burned, my ankle throbbed. The cuts on my arms had stopped bleeding, crusted over with scabs that pulled and cracked with each movement. And then, between one step and the next, the cabin appeared. I did not see it approach. I did not navigate toward it. One moment, I was walking blind through impossible darkness, and the next, my outstretched hands met rough-hewn wood. A door, a latch, a structure that smelled of old smoke and abandonment. The door swung open at my touch. Inside, I found flint on the mantel. My hands shook so badly it took a dozen strikes to catch a spark. But finally, light bloomed through the small room. A hearth with old wood already stacked. A cot with moth-eaten blankets. A table and chair. A shelf of empty jars. Someone had lived here once. Someone who needed to hide from something worse than weather. I barred the door with a chair, checked every corner for threats, and then, only then, allowed myself to sink to the floor and shake. The dreams were red. They always were after. I woke before dawn with my wedding dress stuck to the floor by dried blood. Grey light crept through the cabin's single window, weak and watery, barely strong enough to illuminate the damage I had done to myself. My arms were striped with cuts from the rose bushes, shallow but numerous, crusted with dark scabs. My ankle had swollen to twice its normal size, mottled purple and black beneath the ruined silk of my stockings. My face, when I touched it carefully, felt tight with dried blood from a gash across my forehead I did not remember receiving. I catalogued my circumstances the way my nurse had taught me to count stitches, one fact at a time, no room for panic. 1. I was alive. 2. I was hidden. 3. I had no food, no water, no weapon, no plan. 4. Somewhere beyond these walls, a king was hunting me with all the resources of his kingdom. 5. I heard wings in the dark. Not birds. The sound was too heavy, too deliberate. A great rushing of air, a displacement of silence, like something large landing on the roof. Then nothing. I pressed myself against the wall beneath the window and held my breath. The light outside did not change. No shadow passed across the glass. The cabin's beams did not creak beneath added weight. But something had come. Something was here. I stayed frozen until full daylight broke through the trees. An hour, maybe more. Only then did I ease myself toward the door, every muscle screaming from the fall and the run and the night on hard boards. The clearing was empty. No tracks in the frost, no sign that anything had visited. But in the doorway, placed with deliberate care, sat a single dead rabbit. Throat torn out, body still warm. Something was feeding me. I stepped over the offering and made my way toward the sound of running water, telling myself the rabbit meant nothing. An animal killed by another animal. A coincidence. The forest watched me as I walked. I could feel attention in the silence, patient, curious, waiting to see what I would do next.